What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, it is my review of Keeper, the brand new game from Double Fine, who was best known for the Psychonauts games. This game came out on October 17th, and I have finished it. I have actually had a little while to sit with my thoughts on it. I finished it on October 20th, so just a few days after the game came out, and I've been sitting on this game for almost a month as of recording this video and have some things to say about it. So without further ado, let's dive in. So there's a couple of different places that I could start with Keeper and where to start talking about it, but as per usual with my reviews, I do want to start with the gameplay. I want to let you know what you will be doing in Keeper, because if you just kind of look at it just based on gameplay, you might be able to tell really what it is, but it's basically, this game is kind of one of those games where there's no voice acting, there's no storytelling through that. It's visual storytelling. A lot of these games, best examples are like Inside and Limbo from Playdead, things more recently like Cocoon, maybe A Planet of Lana. Those types of games where they're shorter, they focus a lot on the visual storytelling, pretty much everything on visual storytelling, and also puzzle solving. And that is mostly what this game is it's visuals, it's having the story be told through those visuals, but also your gameplay is walking from point to point, going on this journey from start to end, and in your way are going to be some puzzles. So that's kind of the basic premise gameplay wise of Keeper. It's start to end, you're walking through this journey, you'll have some puzzles along the way. So if you're kind of into that style of gameplay, shorter experience, it took me, I want to say, 5 hours to finish it, 4 or 5 hours to finish this game. You're going to get that with Keeper, with the puzzles along the way. The puzzles in this game are nothing crazy. It's not going to, blow your mind. Tough puzzles. You might get stuck on one or two, and you might be like, oh, these are, that's a pretty cool idea. I did have that kind of realization throughout the entire game where, there were some cool puzzles and some cool ideas there, but nothing that, I got stuck on, and I am not a puzzle guy. I really suck at puzzles. It's not that I don't like puzzles, I'm just not good at them. So, I won't admit it, or I will admit it, not afraid to look up a walkthrough if I get stuck, because I don't want to sit at this roadblock. I'll give up, I'll look up a guide just to figure out, how I was supposed to figure that out, and through that I might be like, oh, you know what, that was actually a really cool idea, or, vice versa. But overall, the puzzles are, there's a couple of them in the game where you might realize, wow, that was a really cool idea, really smart puzzle design, but the puzzles are not difficult, pretty basic, straightforward, and I kind of dig that. A lot of people might want some crazy puzzles, especially if that is what the gameplay is really all about, when it's trying to break up the point-to-point walking journey. But I liked it. It was enough of a puzzle to kind of stop, make me think for a second, but then it didn't break the momentum of the journey from start to end. So I did like how they incorporated the puzzles, some cool ideas there with the puzzles, and overall, that is the kind of game that you're going to get with Keeper. It is a walking simulator, I guess you could say, if that's what you want to call it, with some puzzles thrown in there to break that up and keep you kind of on your toes, keep your attention, I guess. And it does a pretty good job of doing that throughout the game, and even when you go through the different acts, which we'll start talking about in a little bit with story progression, and things switch up gameplay wise and you're doing these different things, they're still able to deliver on those puzzles in a good way. So overall, with the gameplay, there's not a lot to talk about. There's not incredible amounts of variety. It does switch it up at points throughout the story, so it's not like you're playing as this lighthouse the entire time. You do switch it up. You do kind of play as different I guess the best word might be entities, maybe, or just different forms. You're not playing as this lighthouse the entire time. It does switch it up, especially towards the end of the game, where I think it does a really good job of doing interesting things and keeping it fresh and unique as the game rolls on. But overall, the gameplay, there's not a lot to say about it because it is just really puzzles, and it's there because it wants to break up what the game is really meant to do, which is tell you this story through visuals and take you on a journey. So I think it does a good job of that, and it kept me entertained throughout the runtime. Next up, I want to talk about performance and visuals. Really mostly visuals, but I will touch on performance very quickly. I did play this game on PC, and overall I did have a good experience with the performance. There were some parts of the game where it got really busy, where I would see some drops, but there was nothing that made the game unplayable. Overall, it was very smooth throughout. Didn't get like the highest frame or anything like that, but that also just really depends on your device and your setup. Performance is a thing that I like to talk about. I like to mention only if it's something that is either really good or really bad, and sometimes I just want to touch on it just to have it mentioned, because it is something that could deter someone away from buying a game. If the performance is bad, don't buy the game until it's fixed. But Keeper's not one of those games. I think the performance was solid throughout. Nothing crazy, but it was able to maintain a solid frame rate with a few drops throughout the game, but nothing unplayable. Really, the visuals are what I want to get into with Keeper, because, man, that's something that I think caught a lot of people's eye when Keeper was announced, is that the art direction, art style, the visuals in Keeper, are very unique. They pop on the screen, very colorful, lots of things going on in the different environments, and throughout the entire game that was showcased in a big way. You can tell that the creativity, not only from a gameplay perspective with what they can do and the ideas that they have, but also from the art standpoint. They have a very creative art team. You saw that with Psychonauts 2, the people that worked on that game, just the different colors and like the psychedelic things that would happen in that game, how creative that got. It does that in this game too, and it pops off of the screen. There's a lot of things that go on, a lot of different colors that are used, the different environments. I think that the visuals in Keeper are very well done. It does a great job of doing different things with the environment. I think environment variety is very important in any game, because you don't want to see the same thing all the time. You want to have different things happening on the screen, and throughout the short runtime it does do a great job of that. Keeper does a great job of bringing new ideas to the table, keeping the visuals fresh, and man, there's some great moments with the visuals where you just stop and stare and just look at the wildlife. You can see things. It's not a stale screen. There are things happening in the background always. You'll see birds flying around, animals running on the ground. It's really cool to see. There's a lot of cool moments that just make you want to stop and stare at what's going on throughout the game. I got a couple moments of that I'll show you right now. the way that this game looks and the art style and the direction of it is definitely my favorite part of the game. It is what it seems like this team wanted to do. It seemed like they have a lot of ideas creatively in that department. They also had a story to tell, which we'll talk about in a second. But they wanted to just kind of let loose on this game and do a lot of creative things with it. And you can tell, you'll play through it and you can see that they were able to knock a lot of those ideas out of the park and really stick the landing with the visuals and the art style in Keeper. Definitely my favorite part of the game. This game looks fantastic. It's got great art. I mean, you can really take a bunch of pictures and they could probably pass as art in this game. Lots of things happening, and the visuals in Keeper, very, very good. Definitely my favorite part of the game. They knocked it out of the park. Game looks great. It's very unique. I was loving every second of looking and kind of getting into the atmosphere and the vibe that this game was going for. Last thing that I want to talk about is the story and the story progression, because with the visuals, I think the two most important things with these type of games like an Inside or Limbo that I mentioned earlier is a great mix of visual storytelling and then also the game taking you on a journey that you want to be taken on. And because there's no voice acting, there's no, vocal storytelling, the game needs you to be asking questions. The game needs to be giving you these story beats through the visuals that make you ask questions and want to get answers through the visual storytelling, and Keeper does that in a very good way. I mean, Inside is the best example of that. That is one of, if not probably my favorite examples of this type of game. That is kind of the gold standard that you would look up to in terms of, the visuals and how dark and gritty that game is, but also the questions that the game keeps making you ask to further progress you through your journey and make you want to keep playing. So that's the important thing about these types of games with the visuals and also the storytelling, is making you ask questions to keep you going on this journey, make you want to know what is going to happen next. So a quick story plot premise for Keeper is that you wake up and you are playing as a lighthouse. That was one of the things with the pre-release of this game, kind of threw everyone off whenever we saw this game for the first time. And it's like, okay, well, you're playing as a lighthouse and you're just walking around, and how could that be fun? I think the fact that it's a Double Fine game, at least for me, if this game was not a Double Fine game, this is not something that I would have checked out, because only Double Fine could really pull me into this type of game and make me want to figure out, okay, what kind of story they want to tell, how creative are they wanting to get with it. So you wake up as a lighthouse, and this bird named Twig wakes you up and starts you off on this journey. You kind of figure out throughout the beginning of the game that it seems like your journey's end is going to be at the peak of this mountain, and you are progressively getting towards that mountain, trying to survive. And the story takes a lot of twists and turns, I'd say. There's a lot of big moments that happen in this story, and without spoiling, it is a very short game, so it's a game that I think you can sit down and finish in a play session or two, really kind of sit down with it and take it in. But without getting into spoilers, there is a lot of, it seems like, kind of desolation, abandonment. The world does not seem like it used to, and throughout this journey you do kind of go and wake up certain parts of the world as you're moving through and trying to get to this peak of the mountain. And how the story progresses, it has different acts and chapters, and throughout the different acts, that's when you kind of take the form of these different, basically, without getting into spoilers, I'll talk about the first two acts without getting into the later acts. Your first act, you're playing as this lighthouse, but then once you get into the second act, you turn into a fishing boat. These two ways of playing the game are very different. You're not doing the same thing when you're playing as the lighthouse as you are when you were playing as the fishing boat. And it does do a couple of new things and unique things throughout the rest of the game as well, to switch it up and make sure that you aren't doing the same thing throughout the short, 4 to 5 hour runtime. You could probably turn this runtime into maybe 6, 7, 8 hours if you really take your time with the game, but I think most playthroughs are going to probably sit at that 4, 5, maybe 6 hour mark. But that is pretty much the basic plot premise of the game. A lot of this game is the story and how it's told through the visuals, so I don't really want to get into spoilers there. I want you to be able to experience it for yourself. If this is something that you think is your type of thing, there's a lot of cool moments in the story from a visual standpoint that I will show now. These will not spoil anything. I just think that they're really cool ways of showing how this game does visual storytelling in a great way. There are a lot of cool sections in this game as well, like the village one that you just saw there in that very short clip. There's a bunch of cool sections in this game that I'll think back on when I think about Keeper, and they do a great job of moment to moment, kind of set piece, location based gameplay and storytelling, where it kind of sits you in that one location and it lets you take it in, and it does great visual storytelling there as well. There are some collectibles also. I think that they're cool from a visual standpoint. They're off the beaten path. You do get an achievement for finding one of these collectibles. You'll kind of scan it with your light from the lighthouse or the boat or however you scan it, and it'll kind of form together and you'll get the achievement. The achievement will kind of give you a little bit of backstory. I think from a storytelling standpoint, the collectibles really just don't do a lot, but from a visual standpoint they are pretty cool, and it's nice to go off the beaten path and find something that you probably shouldn't have found but is there because the developers wanted to have you be able to go off the beaten path and find things you might not have been able to find if you didn't. So I think that is pretty cool. A couple of collectibles in this game, and it does a cool job of visual storytelling from that as well. Overall though, this story does take you on what I think is a very good journey from start to finish. It kept me interested throughout, trying to figure out what was going to happen next. I think Act 1 is a very solid act. Act 2, at least from a gameplay standpoint, I wasn't a huge fan of story-wise. I think Act 2 might be my least favorite, but then the very end of the game, the last probably third of the game, maybe last third or fourth of the game, I'm not really sure timeline-wise where it happens. I think that is definitely my favorite part of the game. I think this game has a very strong ending, not only gameplay-wise. It's my favorite part of the game gameplay-wise, but also story-wise. I think the game wraps up in a very good way. So overall, this game takes you on what I think is a good journey, very good journey. I really enjoyed from start to finish what I got out of Keeper from the story perspective. It does a great job with the visual storytelling as well, and I think if this is the kind of game that interests you at all, you've played these games like an Inside, Cocoon, Planet of Lana, these more recent games, or even Inside, it's older, Limbo's older as well. I think Keeper, from a story perspective, gives you what you are looking for. So what is my verdict on Keeper, the brand new game from Double Fine? I look at this game, and a game like this is hard to look at from a recommendation standpoint because it's not a game that you're going to get a lot of hours out of, a lot of playtime out of. This is not a game that, you might play through this game twice. You might play through it, for me, just the one time, but you might play through it maybe twice. But if these are your types of games, maybe you play through it a lot more. Maybe you try to see all that this game can offer, and I definitely respect that if you want to go for it and do that. This game is running for $30 right now, and for me, even though I've sung most of the game's praises, for $30, I'd say I would wait until maybe this game drops down to maybe a 20, 25, somewhere in that range. I would definitely recommend it. This is a game, though, I think you should experience if it seems like you're interested at all, even just a little bit. This is one game that if you're trying to get the best of 2025, I think you should try to sneak Keeper in there. So it's not that I wouldn't recommend it at 30, it's just that I would definitely recommend it a little bit more at probably a $20 price. That's where I would kind of sit with it. You're going to get your 4 or 5, maybe 6 hours out of it. Maybe you'll play through it again, but this is a game that more than likely is just going to be a one-time playthrough experience, and I'd feel a lot better about it if I spent $20 on it. But I do think that you should experience it if this feels like something you're even remotely interested in. It is also on Game Pass, so this is a game that I did play with Game Pass. So if you still do have Game Pass, I definitely recommend trying it out, playing through it 1 to 2 sittings. It's definitely worth it if you still have the service. But if you're looking to buy the game, $30, go for it. If that is something that really, really interests you, I definitely don't think you would regret it, but I feel like $20 is that sweet spot, maybe 20, 25 of where I would recommend it at the most. So that is going to do it for my Keeper review. Thank you guys for watching, hanging out, talking about Keeper. Let me know down in the comments if you have played Keeper. What are your thoughts about it? Let's talk about it down in the comments. I want to hear all the things that you guys have to say about the game, good and bad. Did you like it? Did you not? Would you recommend it for that $30 price tag? Let me know down in the comments. So that is going to do it for the video. Thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for more, and I'll talk to you later.